Welcome back. This is section 2.2, part 2. I just finished doing this problem here. It was complicated, you had a lot of fractions, but we were able to come up with the answer. Okay, now I'm going to show you an easier method, and you could do it either way. So, going back to this problem here, I copied that. Give me a second. Here's the same problem. So let's start off and let's put this into matrix form. So 2, 1, 1, 7. 1, 2, 1, 8. 3, 1, 2, 11. Okay, so we start out following the same rules. We got to get a 1 where the 2 is. Okay, now before I said take 1/2. To get a 1, you multiply by a reciprocal. But sometimes there's some tricks in there. If you will remember, when we started out, there was 3 things that you could do. You could multiply a row by a number. You could interchange rows. Or you can multiply a row by a number and then add. I used the first one and the third one. I did not use the second one in the last problem. If I want to get, you guys are going to shoot me now, but if I want to get a 1 up here, I could switch rows. Let's take the second row and put it first. 1, 2, 1, 8. And the first row becomes the second row. And the third one stays the same. So what I did, I basically just interchanged row 1 with row 2. And that gave me a 1 up here. Now when you compare back to the other problem, my first step when I took 1/2, look what happened. I started getting fractions. I don't have any fractions yet. That's good. I know you guys don't like doing the fractions. So that's a shortcut that maybe you can use sometime. Okay. So remember, we're trying to work on the diagonal. I got a 1 there. I want to get zeros where the 2 and the 3 are. Top row stays the same. To get a 0 where the 2 is, I multiply by the opposite, so that's -2 times row 1 plus row 2. Put my answers there. So -2 times 1 is -2 plus +2 is 0. We knew that. -2 times 2 is -4. -4 plus 1 is -3. -2 times 1 is -2 plus +1 is -1. -2 times 8 is -16 plus 7 is -9. Still no fractions. On the bottom row, I'm going to multiply by -3. So it's -3 times row 1 plus row 3. -3 times 1 is -3 plus +3 is 0. -3 times 2 is -6. -6 plus 1 is -5. -3 times 1 is -3 plus +2 is -1. -3 times 8 is -24. -24 plus 11 is -13. So at this point, first column's done. I pivoted the first column. What's next? Well, you go to the next row to the right. So where the -3 is, I want to make that into a 1. Unfortunately, I can't switch rows, so now we're going to have to multiply by the reciprocal. So this top row stays the same. I'm going to take -1/3. Since I want to make that into a 1, I multiply by the reciprocal, which is -1/3, times row 2. So -1/3 times 0 is 0. By the way, once you get zeros here, those won't change. Negative 1/3 times negative 3 is 1. That becomes my new pivot. Negative 1/3 times negative 1 is positive 1/3. Negative 1/3 times negative 9 is positive 3. And the bottom is the same. Okay. Trying to do a diagonal. That helps separate the matrices a little bit. All right. Now that I got a 1, I want to get 2 zeros. So to get a 0 where the 2 is, I'm going to multiply by negative 2 and add. So that's negative 2 times row 2 plus row 1. Negative 2 times 0, 0 plus 1, that's still 1. I told you it'd stay the same. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus positive 2 is 0. Negative 2 times 1/3 is negative 2/3. Think of 1 as being 3/3, so 3 and negative 2 is 1, so this can be 1/3. Negative 2 times 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 8 is positive 2. So I'm getting fractions, but not as many as before. Second row stays the same. Now I want to get a 0 where the negative 5 is. So we're going to multiply by 5. The opposite of negative 5 is positive 5. So that's 5 times row 2, because that's the pivot, plus row 3. 5 times 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus negative 5, 0. 5 times 1/3 is 5/3. This is like negative 3/3, so 5 and negative 3 be 2. 2/3 goes right here. And 5 times 3 is 15. 15 and negative 13 is 2. So yes, I got fractions, but they're only in the third column. Here, that's all done. Now I'm going to work on the 2/3. I want to get a 1 there. Top row is going to stay the same. Second row is going to stay the same. Because I'm getting a 1 here, I'm only changing this row. I can only get, when I'm getting a 1, I can only work one row at a time. To get a 1 here, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. So the reciprocal of 2/3 is going to be 3/2. 3/2 times row 3. 3/2 times 0 is 0. 3/2 times 0 is 0. 3/2 times 2/3 is 1. That's my new pivot. And 3/2 times 2, the 2's drop out, 3. One more step. Okay, I got the 1. Now I want to get 2 zeros. To get a 0 where the 1/3 is, I multiply by the opposite, so it's going to be negative 1/3. That's the opposite of the 1/3 I had here. Times your pivot row, which now is row 3. I'm going to add it to row 1 and put my answers in row 1. So negative 1/3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 still 1. Negative 1/3 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is still 0. Negative 1/3 times 1 is negative 1/3, plus positive 1/3, that's 0. And negative 1/3 times 3 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 is 1. Second row, that's negative 1/3 times row 3 plus row 2. Put my answers in row 2. So negative 1/3 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. Negative 1/3 times 0 is 0, plus 1 is still 1. Negative 1/3 times 1 is negative 1/3, plus positive 1/3, and that is 0. Negative 1/3 times 3 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2. And the bottom stays the same. Okay, so at this point here, you'll notice I've got ones on the diagonal and zeros everywhere else. So my answer is 1, 2, 3. And that should be the same answer as before, but I know it's not. I need to go back and check real quick. 3, 2. Okay. That answer is correct. Let me go back to what I had over here. I see the mistake. See if I got a different color I can write with. And I'll use this. So when I came down right here on this problem before, I took -1/2 times 3, that's -3 halves. -3 halves plus 7 halves is 4 halves. I put 11. That should be 4 halves. Let me try this one. That should have been 4 over 2, which was 2. So that makes, that's just 2. And now on the bottom, when you take -1/3 times 3, that's -1 plus 2. That makes that 1. So I got 1, 2, 3. Well, at least I caught my mistake. That's one of the downfalls of doing all this is it's easy to make a mistake. Okay. I've got 2 more. I'm going to streamline this a little bit more because what I'm going to show you here really comes from the answer. Okay, so we're going to solve by Gaussian. You get a different type of answer. I got 1, I got -1, I got 1, I got 3. Hope you can see those okay. I'm doing this to save space. I got 1, I got 1, I got -1, I got 5. I got -2, I got 4, I got -4, and I got 1. Okay, I've already got a 1 here. That just saved myself a step. So the top row stays the same. I want to get a 0 here. All I have to do is take negative row 1, add it to row 2. You'll always notice the second part here is the row you're going to. So -1 plus 1 is 0. Take the opposite, becomes 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. Take the opposite of this, that's -1 plus -1 is -2. And -3 plus 5 is 2. To get a 0 here, I'm going to take 2 times row 1, add it to row 3, put my answers there. So 2 times 1 is 2, plus -2 is 0. 2 times -1 is -2. -2 plus 4 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 plus -4 is -2. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 5. Okay, so the first column is done. Here's the main diagonal. I'm going to work on that too. First row stays the same. I'm going to take 1/2 of row 2. Half of 0 is 0. Half of 2 is 1. That's my new pivot. Half of -2 is -1, and half of 2 is 1. bottom row stays the same. Now I want to get zeros in the second column. To get a 0 here, I'm simply going to take row 2 plus row 1. Row 2 is the pivot row. I'm going to add it to row 1. I'm going to change the numbers in row 1. So 0 plus 1, still 1. 1 and negative 1, 0. Negative 1 and 1 is 0. And 1 plus 3 is 4. Second one stays the same. And now we want to get a 0 here, so we're going to take negative 2 times row 2 plus row 3. Okay, so negative 2 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Negative 2 times negative 1 is 2. 2 and negative 2 is 0. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 5 is 3. We got a problem. Any ideas what the problem is? Look at the bottom row. If I was going to change this back to an equation form, that would be 0x plus 0y plus 0z equals 3. Or 0, that's all equal to 0, equals 3. Is 0 equal to 3? No. 0 is never equal to 3.